Welcome to another vintage fishing reel service video. In this episode we have a Zebco Quantum model QFM2 and this was called the Quantum Spincast, and Zebco produced this from 1985 to 1987, and it was in the catalogs in 1986 and 1987. It's got a casing made out of Kevlar, and one of the features, one of the unique things is that the thumb button to release the line, rather than pushing down, you can't push down on it, you push forward on it to release the line. And then it has a second button over here that they call the feather mag, which they claim is a magnetic cast control. So basically you cast, and as the line's going out, you can push this in to slow the cast to get it right where you want it. And the extent to which you slow that cast is determined by this dial over here, which apparently supposedly has I have to trust them. There's magnets in there, but basically, I think playing around with this, it just affects how far you can push in this button, which affects how far the little line break goes up to meet the spinner head and kind of slow the line. I'll show you that in a minute. They call this release button, the typical button that you see on a Spincast, the Q-cast. The Q-cast button. That's the right hand button. The feather cast control is the left hand. It's all brass gears, so that's nice. 3.6 to 1 gear ratio, and it was spooled from the factory with 80 yards of 10-pound test. Kind of a neat little reel, kind of a gimmicky nod to the more contemporary bait casting reels that were coming out with the magnetic control to slow so you didn't get the backlashes and so on. This really doesn't have anything to do with backlash so much as it does slowing the line down to land that lure right where you want it to. So it does have a selective anti-reverse. So when that's on red, you got anti-reverse. It's certainly not continuous anti-reverse by any stretch. And then when the green is down, then you've got override of the anti-reverse. It's got some ball bearing in there somewhere. So I don't know what the tin's about. Maybe somebody had a whole bunch of them for a camp or something and marked it with a tin. I don't know what that's all about. Star drag adjuster, so on. So, and then I don't know if somebody had like a fishing worm that melded on there or what, but have to get whatever that is off of there eventually. So, all right, let's get into it. To remove the cap, it's a counterclockwise turn and pulls off. Has a single pickup pin. No cuts in the spinner head on this one. But see, when you push that, well, maybe, let's see. I thought, yeah, when you push that cast control, you see this thing right here. I think I have it. Is that on the highest setting? Let's turn it up to 10 and then push that button, and you can see, so it was on the lowest setting. This is the highest setting. It really pinches it up there. So that's the highest setting. What is that? Maybe it's 12, 6, 8, 10. Yeah, maybe it's like 12 or 14. And you click that down to the lowest setting, and then when you push that button, it's just not quite as aggressive there. So there's maximum, and it just, the whole thing engages with the spinner head at that point. So at any rate, this pulls out of the case easy, I guess there's the magnets. So there's a magnet there, and there's a magnet there. So there's your magnets. And basically, like I said, I don't know if you can see how far that button right there is coming forward, but when I push that forward at the lowest setting, that button doesn't move very far forward. And then when I turn it up to the highest setting, okay, that button comes way up. So the dial actually affects the range of motion of the button. At the highest setting, that button really comes forward. At the lowest setting, not so much. So, at any rate, and there's some springs in there to return the buttons to their position. So, it doesn't rely on solely on the spring on the pinion gear shaft. But it's a standard kind of a Zebco spinner head where you hold onto the handle, turn counterclockwise, and you can see the pickup pin mechanism there. Put all that in the parts tray. Our drag, just to be sure, we're going to turn the drag all the way at its lowest setting, essentially turn it off, and then we can take off our spool, our E-clip, above our spool here. Come on. And then you've got a metal drag washer and a Teflon drag washer, and then you have your spool, and then you're going to have another Teflon and another metal drag washer. So there's the spool. Let's get that nasty line off of there. There. I'm starting to get quite a bit of line on my drill line removing tool, and I think that line that was on there was factory line, just by the nature of the knot that was on there. It looked like a factory tied knot, and so that line probably dates back to the mid-80s. And then we've got our pressure plate here. And by the way, this reel, the general design of it looks very similar to a like a 1020, a Zebco 1020. What's going on here? All right, here we go. So then we take off our pressure plate. And so the way this drag works, okay, when you move the star drag, like when I'm tightening the drag, this little brass bar here is moving back towards the handle. And so when you have your drag at the lowest, that plate is going to set flat in there. And because that's beveled, it's like a ramp. As I bring that, if I tighten that drag, it's bringing that bar up against this ramp, and as it does so, it pops that pressure plate up and provides pressure on the spool. So when I tighten the drag, you'll see that bar. Oh, I just realized, didn't know that before, one of the tines is missing. Why they made these out of plastic or Kevlar, I have no idea. That happens on the One Classics a lot too. But when I tighten that drag, that bar starts moving back, raises up that, hits that ramp, raises that pressure plate up into the spool. So, but yeah, it's a shame. It makes it a little hard to adjust when you're fishing, when you're missing one of the tines on that star drag adjuster. So a lot of grease is going to have to get out of there. Now this thing, I think we want to be careful because this is older plastic, but this line brake here, part of that mag system, I think it just clips. Now, I've never been into one of these before, so I'm just going at this, but I'm thinking that if I push that clip over the edge, this thing can work out of there. And there's this comes off, this little metal piece there, and that sticks to that magnet and then clips over, well, yeah, it clips over the edge of that notch right there. So be careful not to lose that, and try to remember how that goes on there. And then to remove the handle, you've got a kind of a keeper screw and cap here. So you just unscrew that screw, and there's your little keeper that keeps your handle nut hopefully from falling off. And I've been going all caveman lately. Too lazy to get out the socket, but trying not to booger that up with the pliers. That's a lock nut, so it comes off pretty hard at first. There's a bunch of gunk in there. And then, let's see here, in terms of, I think you just, there's a clip in there. I'm guessing I have to get that clip out of there is my guess. So let's back that down a little bit and see about popping that clip out of there. I think I need to get that out of there. Easier said than done, probably. I guess we'll sneak. Let's back that thing out of the way a little bit, and then maybe we can sneak a really thin screwdriver up underneath there. I'm getting it off, but now I can't. Wait a minute. There it came. So there's that little clip, E-clip that goes in there. Now I think we can back this out, or not. I don't want to force it and break any more of those tines off. What's holding that on there? Seems like I should have gone through one like this before. We can pull this pinion gear shaft out of there, I think. Yep. Put that in the parts tray. Oh, now that comes off. I wonder if I even needed to take off that clip. Well, if you really want to fully assemble it, I guess you do. And that gets your bushings, whatever, out of there, and your star drag adjuster, and then there's that thing. And your anti-reverse. I don't even know. Oh, that, I don't know. Was that laying there the whole time? I assume that goes in right there. Didn't see that pop off. There's your anti-reverse pull. And that looks like it would be your bearing right there. Yep. That looks to be in pretty good shape. I suppose I could pop that out of there, but I'm not going to. I mean, it's well lubricated and it's moving easily, and I'm not going to booger it up. I'd have to probably put a screwdriver down through there and try to tap it around the edge. I mean, if it popped out real easily, but I'm not going to sit there and booger it all up trying to get it out of there. So I'm going to leave that in place. So with disassembly complete, I'm going to take this over to the sink and scrub it and put some WD-40 on these greasy parts with a toothbrush, getting a cotton swab down in all these journals, so on and so forth. Give it another rinse with Dawn dishwashing soap and a toothbrush to get off all the oil and penetrant residues, and I'll be back just like that. Okay, let's pull out all the parts. And start putting this thing together. Oh, look at that beautiful brass gearing. You know, I hear some of the Spincast detractors, people that say Zebco's just kids' reels and they're all plastic gears. Those people don't know the rear end from a hole in the ground. I've serviced hundreds of reels of all different kinds, and the only reel I've ever serviced that actually had plastic gears was the True Temper 420, which were nylon, and that was part of the, apparently, supposedly part of the appeal of the reel. They were advertising it as space age, blah, blah. Even the Zebco kids reels, the little Fishosaurus Rex and all those, always metal gears. Honestly, I think they don't know anything, but I think they see the plastic drag wheel, the adjustment wheel, and think that's a gear, and so they think Zebcos have plastic gears. They think they're special, I guess, because they know how to fish with a spinning reel or a bait caster, whereas us spin casters do as well. We just choose to fish with spin casters because they're fun, and they catch fish, and they catch big fish, and if you know how to fish, they're just as good in most applications, except maybe, you know, saltwater type stuff. So, at any rate, let's start by putting this system back together. So we're going to put that little thing in there and get that started. Wait a minute, something's ain't right. Oh, I got to get my I think I have to put the star drag on first. So I'll get that in there, that up in there, and then start that in, and then we can put in this clip to hold all that in. Make sure that clips all the way down. And then we can grease the back side of the main gear, those cogs on the anti-reverse gear, and then of course the teeth of the main gear. Just pack those. Wipe up any excess, because it's just going to sling that excess off and it'll never get used anyway. Just pack the teeth. If you're going to be fishing a reel regularly, you're going to want to service it at least once a year anyway. So you're not relying on that grease doing its thing for 20 years, although that's the way a lot of these ended up going. And then of course we want to oil the main gear shaft. And of course I've already taken a cotton swab down in through there, cleaned all that out. So now it'll be really nicely lubricated. We can't forget our little, and the question is, which way does this thing go in? I'm not sure. We'll just try it. Our little anti-reverse pawl. Let's just see here. Well, you got to get that. You got to get this little doodad here, this little tab on that, to go in the notch on that anti-reverse pawl first thing. And no, I think that might be backwards. I think maybe that goes like that with that little bend. We'll see. I probably should be able to just figure it out intuitively, but I can't, so I'm just going to try it different ways till I get it right. Alright, that's correct. So I can go forward. When I go back, it catches. So that little bend in the pawl kind of goes back towards, bends towards the handle and is at the top. And again, make sure you get that little doodad on that piece on the back of the main gear to insert into the notch on the anti-reverse pawl. I don't know how much this is going to seep down into that bearing, but I'm just going to put a little oil there and set that and let that soak for a second while I take the pinion gear, and I'm going to get some oil up underneath there, work that in, maybe a little up here, and grease the pinion gear itself. Just pack those teeth. I had to get a little pick and get all the hard gunk out of those teeth when I was cleaning. Just the brush and the WD wasn't doing it all. And some oil on that shaft, and slink that back down in there till it meshes up. It's working fine. Probably could sneak the handle back on there. Again, especially if it's a collector reel or something and you don't want to booger up mar up the nut, you probably should use a rat or a socket on this. But now we need to get our little keeper on, which means I might have gotten lucky there. Might be oriented just right for that screw to go. Yep, got lucky there. And our little keeper's in place. It's running. Wow, look at that. Look at that. All right. Now, I suppose it's time to trying to remember. Wait a minute, tell me. Let's see here. This went over there like that. I thought thought it was on there like that, but let me just put this on. Boy, that doesn't fit on there very tightly. Alright, I think I got it now. Don't break. Get off of there. I think this goes on there like that. So that clips over there like that. And then you get that like that. Come on. Get that like that. And then, you little stinker. There's probably a easier way to do this, but whatever. Get that to kind of sit in that notch, and then come over there and snap that into place so that that little spring clips over the edge and rests up underneath the magnet there. And at that point, we're ready to put our, whoops, get it back in there. We're ready to put our pressure plate back on. And so this little short tab fits up into the base of that drag clicker. And let's make sure our drag is turned all the way off. So I'm going to bring that bar close to the spindle. And then that ramp will just rest right over that brass bar. And then we can just very lightly grease that. You can put a little more on the spindle and up on the end of the spindle there. And then you really don't need to do much in the way of greasing these. A little grease on your fingers if you want, but whoops, dummy. That doesn't go down first. The metal one goes first. Metal washer. That's keyed, so I just fit it on there till it goes down. And then a little bit of light grease on there, just a smidge. And then this, and then our spool. And then a lightly greased Teflon washer, a lightly greased metal washer, and it's not, those ears, I guess they're kind of engaging in the slots, and then you get your E-clip on. Alright, where'd it go? Alright, what kind of parts have I left laying around, any? I think we're on the right path here, so we gotta lubricate the pickup pin, just get some oil in the pivot point and then up underneath that arm, work that in, and then screw that back into place. Oh, you stupid thing, get down there. There. You don't have to put that real tight. You don't want to do that because then you have a problem getting it off. And then What's that hair in there? Yeah, there. Then we can slip the rear cover back on. And this one doesn't really have a specific orientation. There's really not a drain hole or anything. And there's no logo to go one way or the other. And so I guess you can put that on there any way you darn please. You just got to line up those little... Where are they? Yeah. And then twist that, and then get all this grease off, or oil. And put a couple drops of oil. I've already rinsed these with WD-40. So just put a little bit of oil in there and let that work down. Makes a whole lot of difference in terms of fishing fatigue if even the handle knobs rotate nicely. Get everything working smoothly. So there is a completed Zebco Quantum QFM2 produced between 1985 and 1987, cataloged only in the 1986 and 1987 catalogs. Nifty, neat little reel. Personally, I would probably never use the feather touch feature. I don't know if I'd have the presence of mind mid-cast to even think about using that, but I'm good enough casting with these things that I really don't need it. And a lot of times, of course, I'm always palming the reel. I can do a lot of that, stopping lures and slowing down lures by just bringing my finger up over the hole a little bit. But it's a nifty, neat feature. It's a nifty, neat reel. I like it. I like it. It looks pretty cool. And I'm sure it's a good reel. So, hope you enjoyed that. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.